our producer wrote us and said, "Hey, this is the best comment we've gotten in a long time." Some guy described us as a postmodern Santa and Mrs. Claus.
I don't think that's good.
I think that's awesome. Thank you. That's such a compliment. He's
Santa-
listening to us.
And I believe that Santa and Mrs. Claus are
Have you been on Pinterest? They have some
well-fed.
smoking hot, silver bearded Santas.
Yeah, that's-
and it's like a postmodern Santas. That's who you are. And I
Okay.
get to be your Mrs. Claus. So
yeah, you do.
That's good. Anyway, I thought I'd throw that in there. So thank
Well, that's
you.
Hey, we had some technical difficulties, and Mingo, Pastor Mingo
Yes.
at Torrey Pines that we work with up there,
Yeah.
and Guy Johnson, they came through with some equipment.
Yes, because they're techie guys.
They're techie guys.
Yes.
And we're not techie guys, but we're making it work. So
Yes. Yeah.
until
Are
we
you
get-
saying that to qualify in case you start cussing later? Because you get really intense when there's
I
technical
won't cuss.
difficulties.
I'm a Jesus follower.
When I say cuss, I mean things like shucks and darn.
Yeah.
Shucky darn.
Yeah. So here's the first question. We had some questions that were asked of us, and the first one is this: what is it like to be married after divorce? So a second marriage.
Yeah.
What is that like? Got any ideas?
Well, it's been a lot better than the first round. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah.
And if you haven't heard my story,
Yeah.
then you'll understand why.
You have a story?
Oh, babe. We all have a story. Yes.
Well,
Yes.
so, yeah, for me too. So here's the thing. I think if you've gone through a divorce or you're widowed or widower, I think you learn something being single as an adult.
Yes. Yes.
And, being older and saying, I got married as a teenager. You were married pretty young. And so,
23.
yeah, 23. So, you really don't know what you want at that point.
Yeah.
I think it's probably best to wait to 25 or 30. In my case, I needed to wait till I was 50.
I will say that I think I hear the wisdom in that, but I
Yeah.
don't necessarily think that's the case. I do think what's important is that you have experienced some level of independence, some wisdom. You've had a good example
Yeah.
in your parents, because both of us had parents that married very young, which was very common in that generation, and remained married, happily married,
Yeah.
their entire life. So it's, but I will concede that it seems like as time goes on and the generations keep going, we are having very unique issues to each generation that prove to be very challenging.
Yeah.
So it doesn't hurt to wait and really
Yeah.
know who you're marrying and
Yeah.
take the time.
Well, I kind of want to rescind what I said, because putting a number there,
Yeah.
there are 25-year-olds that act like they're 10.
Exactly.
There are 50-year-olds that act like 10.
Yep.
I know a person my age that sometimes
68-year-olds.
acts like he's 10. So, but there are a lot that are very mature.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I don't think it's about the age, chronological age. I think it has to do with maturity and knowing what you want and not romanticizing marriage.
That's really
I
important.
think that, yeah. I think in a second marriage, if at all possible, make that first marriage work, and a lot of people do. And of course, that was both our intent. It just
Sure.
didn't happen,
Yes.
and didn't want to be divorced, but there it was. So what happens in the second marriage, I think, and we've talked about this a lot, that for us, I can't speak for everybody, but for us, we are more grateful for each other than I think I would have been.
Well,
if
yeah.
I
So
hadn't
we
been
just
married
had this
before.
conversation the other night, and
Yeah.
for both of us, I know everybody, it gets into weird territory when you start comparing stories or whatever. But for my situation, it was very traumatic, and my ex-husband was living a double lifestyle of having relationships outside of our marriage, and came out of the closet after 15 years and 5
Yeah.
kids. So there was a lot of trauma behind all of that. And so in your situation, there was also a lot of trauma,
Yeah.
but I think we were talking about the other night, one of the beautiful things that can happen is that you have a perspective that is seasoned. You also have a perspective that is you have a gratefulness that I don't believe that I could have had I not been through my first marriage, that I experience every day. Just knowing
Yeah.
you, we talk about that all the time, how I feel like I'll forever be so deeply grateful for your character and the way you love me and our family. And you can't help but compare that to what you didn't have necessarily in the first marriage. So we were blessed that way.
I can't even imagine not being grateful for you. You're such a good wife.
Oh, thanks,
I'm
honey.
just put it
I'm
out
trying
there.
to
Yes,
score
I
some
am.
points. And
Yes, I am.
I know it. I see you, Tim Scott. I know what's coming down later.
Oh, man.
But I will say this, that
Got to work your angles, bro.
we had choices. Now we've been married almost 15 years, so longer
Yeah.
than my first marriage, to get stuck along the way when we've pushed through and learned to communicate and
Yeah.
heal. Because when you've been through a marriage before, you can feel like, oh gosh, I've gotten healed from this or that. You really don't know if you're whole until you're put in another situation of a committed partnership in marriage, when those things are tested.
Yeah.
And you realize, oh my gosh, I have some work to do.
Right.
And that played out for us. And for me specifically, I think in like years 3 through 5 or whatever, in our the beginning, I was struggling with things that I thought I'd gotten over, but were being kind of tested. And you were so patient with me and would say to me, please don't project on me the failures of your first experience,
Yeah.
and
And that's an easy thing to do.
it's
and
so
it's
easy.
a problem for
Yes,
a second marriage.
Right, so easy.
Yeah, I think really the gratitude is a big deal. Getting over divorce, getting over the death of a spouse. In my case, I had both of those things. Had to deal with her death, but also had to deal with the fact that before she died, she left and divorced. So both of those kind of, there's some healing that goes on there. But I think God supernaturally put us together and blended our family, which is going to be the next question.
Yeah.
But before we go to this next question, I just wanted to say that this Sunday, the 7th, is, well, Kimberly and I are going to be speaking for Eastlake Network, and the next 2 weeks. But at the Eastlake campus in Chula Vista, we're going to be talking about relationships and marriage and so forth. And we're going to start a series the following week, which next week will be the 8th, Monday the 8th. It will broadcast and be available starting Monday morning the 8th on relationships and marriage. So I want to encourage you. We're going to communication. We're going to talk about the 4 essentials.
Yeah.
We used to call them the 5, but now they're the 4, and we had to cut it down.
Yeah.
but the 4 essentials of marriage. So we need you to, and relationships, not just marriage. So join us next week. Invite your friends. It's going to be a really good series starting the 8th, next Monday. So here's the question: how should a man father another man's child?
Well, you're the one to answer.
But
that.
I think the question will expand that and say, how does a woman do that for another woman's children?
Right.
And that may be more sticky.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not sure.
Well, for sure, to start with, it depends on how old they are. Like,
Yeah.
so for instance, when we married, you stepped into raising my 5 children that at that time were
3 under 10.
14 down to 4.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you had 2 daughters that were grown adults with their own kids when I met you. So
Mm-hmm. Right.
I didn't step into a role so we didn't have that challenge with blending where I stepped into trying to raise your daughters. They were already raised.
Yeah.
Which, presents its own unique challenges, but
Right.
it also is very different than me trying to be mama to your babies.
Yeah, I think for me, as I came in, I knew, and this is the thing, we've talked about blended families before, but I think when you come in, you cannot be, men have a tendency to want to be the hero. And that's kind of a natural thing. And part of that is being the provider. Those are some of the innate things in men. I know we live in a day where there's no difference between men and women, but there is a difference between men and women. Just know it. And the reality is, if we're going to broad brush, just to understand that men want to be the hero. And so when you've got a little broken heart,
Yeah.
over their parents divorcing. Now, you divorced several years before we got married, and I had been divorced for 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
So, and like you said, my girls were grown, but Gracie, the youngest at 4 years old, was kind of doesn't even remember me not being there.
Yeah. She doesn't remember having a father in the home except for you.
Right.
Yeah.
And the other kids were ready for you to be happy, ready for you to have a man in your life that
Yes.
would love you and
The
love
right
them.
man.
and one of the things that if you want to bridge with the kids, love their mother well.
Yeah.
That is the best thing. And another thing, if you want your wife, your new wife, to really love you well, really be good to the kids.
So true. That's
So,
so true. That
yeah.
made me fall in love with you so
Yeah.
deeply when you would invest in,
Yeah.
especially, our sons at that time were young teenagers and so desperately needed. Their father had not been very active in parenting. And so they had a real deficit and so longed for and needed the time and attention that you were able to give them. So
We had Ronnie was the only teenager, and Shara, but I mean of
preteens,
the
that's
boys.
what I meant, yeah.
So bridging with Ronnie, kind of man to man was really easy. He's such a good. He's
Yeah.
kind of easygoing and stuff,
Yeah.
but the younger ones, it was an adventure, and they were super excited for those boys. Will make a game out of anything. And then the girls, I had been a father to girls, so I knew how to bridge that. And what I did was I decided I'm going to love these kids well. I'm going to take time before I discipline. I'm going to earn that right to speak into their lives like that. And you just have to be patient and let them love you. And Ronnie led in that they call their biological father, they call him Poppy. So that term dad was kind of a slot that was not used. And for whatever reason, Ronnie really early in our marriage, within the first 6 months, maybe 3 months.
It was, yes.
Sooner.
I think, yeah.
And I remember at church one day, he called me dad in front of his grandfather.
Yeah.
And we were both shocked, and I got choked up. I'm
Yeah.
forgetting now.
He was asking for
But,
keys.
yeah.
And you're like, you weren't even sure he was talking to you. So he had to repeat it again.
Yeah.
Because you were stunned.
Yeah. And then the Gracie had already started. She called me dad when we
Yeah.
first date.
Yeah.
Hey, daddy,
She
you be the
did.
daddy. But that was start. And then what happens is there's just that connection, that bridge that happens with these children individually, with you as quote a stepfather. We
Right.
don't use that term much, but that's what it is. And there's a bridge that happens, and it's really a powerful thing. And you actually fall in love with each other.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to love those stepchildren well. Don't be afraid to love another and respect their dad.
I was
Don't
gonna
put
say,
down the dad.
That's so key. And one of the things we repeat a lot is it would have been a huge mistake for you or any father to come in and start slamming the bio dad. And we didn't do that perfectly. I'll just say, like, there's challenges. We were in a lot of challenging situations around custody, and there's things that were playing out. But our advice is always, please don't tear down the character of the biological parent. Because what it will do is it won't necessarily change your children's perspective, but it will cause them to feel distance and mistrust of you. And there is an underlying alliance there that they feel for their biological parent, which of course they do. It's their dad or their mom.
Yeah.
So it's not your job to try to build a wedge there. And as they grow, they can come to their own conclusions and see things more clearly, but you don't need to be trying to shape their perspective of that spouse,
that's
whether
good.
they're in the wrong or in the right.
I think one thing that we did is we started developing our own traditions as a family, and that included dinner time. It included some other things. And, we had a cabin back then. We used to go to the cabin and, go skiing and different things that we did and just developing a life together.
Routines, yeah.
And now the payoff is that the kids come over every week.
Yeah.
And then the boys, we're on a hiatus right now because of COVID, but the boys are in a Bible study with me. and their friends, group of young men in their 20s that meet together for in-depth Bible study, and just it's cementing our lives together as adults. And we only have one child at home now, so
Yeah, so
and
but
it's-
they all pile in on a
Yeah.
Sunday night,
Yep,
and so
they're
it's
here.
our greatest joy,
Right.
and grandkids too,
Yeah.
which makes us so happy.
And-
Whichever ones are closest to us, we have some that unfortunately are too far to be able
Yeah.
to join us. But
One thing I would say, and this just the other day, I was sitting next to Gracie, and we were getting ready to watch some TV or a show or something. I'm not sure what we were going to do, but she gets a call, and it's a call from her brother Malachi,
yeah,
and he goes, "Hey, we're over at the house, and we're doing this and that. Do you want to come over?" And this is like, it almost is overwhelming how much I love that.
yeah,
The kids love hanging out with each other.
yeah. Your
And that speaks to-
25-year-old son and his 19-year-old sister,
Yeah. Yep.
But they do that all the time with each other. It's cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So next question, I'm skipping a couple
Yeah,
because we're
okay.
going to not have a lot of time. But what is your greatest passion? You go first. What's your greatest passion in life?
In
then
relation
I'll-
to what we've
Just
been
in your-
talking about, or
Nope, just in.
I
in
mean,
life.
if a stranger on the street asked me, "What's your greatest passion in life?" I would say for sure family. Anybody?
I
who,
thought it was controlling me.
Oh, honey, your family.
Oh.
Your family. Yes, I'm such a controller. For
You're
sure.
not a controller. I have that on my.
No,
job
I am.
description.
I feel like personally, for me, everything has always come second to that. My relationship, obviously, with the Lord is number one. But my greatest passion, outside of my commitment to that, would be family. Because I've lived a
children.
life of so much change
Yeah.
and so many different places I've lived in my childhood and my marriage and obviously my first marriage and then my second marriage and churches that we've been a part of and haven't been. So
Yeah.
those are precious to me, but I'm not as passionate about any of it as I am actually leading our family as parents
Yeah.
and
connecting with the kids.
with them. Mhm.
But there's another passion that you're not talking about.
Chocolate.
and- Chocolate. Yeah, that's true.
wait.
Do you like milk chocolate or dark chocolate? I know the answer.
Yeah, dark chocolate needs to be.
Your mom's
thrown
all
away.
about the dark
I don't
chocolate because she's
understand that.
Canadian. She's not even an American.
You might as well go chew on some tree bark for dark chocolate, cacao or whatever.
So no, here's the passion.
Yes.
Is interior decorating.
Oh, design, yeah.
Yeah, that design.
Yes.
And you've got a great eye.
Thank you, honey.
You fixed
I
me
enjoy
up.
it. It's so much fun.
I don't look like
That's
I did
true.
when
That's
we married.
that's definitely something. That's
Like I got rid of the mullet.
Who asked this question? They're asking us what our greatest passion is.
Here's my greatest passion. So we got yours.
Okay.
My greatest passion, other than the Lord, the kids, family, my greatest passion is teaching the Word of God.
Yeah.
It is,
It
I mean,
shows.
studying and teaching. I get excited. I've been studying the Bible since I was a teenager. I've been interested in Bible doctrine since I was a kid. And I get excited every time I learn something new. And it's almost daily
Yeah.
that I learn new things. And sometimes I'll be like a little thing, like you taught me this thing about beauty for ashes, the exchange. I think
Divine
you called
exchange,
it.
yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, gosh, I never thought about that. And then scriptures that I've memorized and I go over in my mind and meditate and learn new things. The Holy Spirit leads me to understand that. And that's my greatest passion
Yeah.
in life.
Yep.
And I mean, I'm very much love our
And
family,
it's
our
so
life,
cool
our
that you
marriage.
get to do that. Like you
Get to
get
do
to
it
do that.
every week.
That's what you get to do. Yeah.
In fact, one of the things we mentioned this is that we're going to be starting a virtual Bible study, and it's going to be an expositional, going through the New Testament over the next several years, and it'll be archived, but it'll be live. We'll stream it on YouTube, and you can watch the video or you can listen to it audio. But anyway, side note. But that's something that's coming down probably in the next couple of months. Here's our last question that we're going to deal with. Why did you start Hope Rescue? I've probably heard that question many times.
Yeah.
And what do you have an answer for
Well,
that?
yeah. So most of you know that a keystone to Hope Rescue outreach is that we take care of or do our best to reach families at risk. And so, and obviously, the last year with COVID and everything, we've been doing that almost weekly. And so I'm passionate about that. And a lot of you don't know in my story is that when I met Tim, I had recently come out of being on the system with my 5 kids because that's the situation we were left in with a divorce. And I'd been hired by a church, and I was able to come off of the support that the state gave me and experience firsthand the difference that the local church can make when they put their boots to the ground. And, for me, a single mom with 5 kids, so young, and really practically helped me with, obviously, being hired on with finances, but also practically families would come, and my house was in shambles. And so they helped to make it more livable. It had been in the middle of a reconstruction when the divorce went down. And so everything was in disrepair. So that whole outreach to at-risk families is precious to my heart because I was the mom with the card when you go to the store that is basically EBT, on I was on the government cheese, I was on the government health care, and boy, was I grateful for it. I was grateful for it. And so, and you never know someone's story. And and that was the best thing that happened to me was that walking in that situation, I'd never experienced that growing up. But I was able to learn very quickly that you cannot judge someone's situation. Our job as believers is to give them a leg up, to come alongside, to provide, and to provide, build, and train.
Yeah,
as much
the
as we
provide
can.
piece is what a lot of outreach ministries do, and it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And we have cars lined up, and in Spring Valley, working with Spring Valley Community Church, and just beautiful people that are there, and family members come, and Chouse is there, Christian House was there,
Our nephew,
our nephew, and it just it's just a beautiful thing, and that provide is really powerful. But the build piece is just to try to build them up and train them how in soft job skills, how they can get jobs and so forth, and how they can, for those that are struggling with substance abuse and so forth. So a lot of the initiatives that we have go beyond just providing, whether it's clothing or food, and then to train people how to do that. And so we really had a vision. And I remember sitting in our backyard talking about this, and to provide, build, and train. And it was something that's been on our heart for many, many years. We started the podcast. We're in our 3rd year, starting this week.
So that was an easy thing to come up with because podcasts were just kind of coming up. I saw our last episode had like 6,000 views, by the way, which is very cool already. The one we talked about sex. But what's exciting about even just throwing that number out is we just sort of like, you know what? You've had experience in radio. I had experience in television years ago. So we were like, let's just get on here and
we've
gab.
got a lot to say.
We've learned a lot by our mistakes.
Here's
And our
I got to
wins.
tell you this. So Pastor Mingo and Pastor Guy at Torrey Pines, Guy's the worship pastor there, and his wife is Hosanna, and Mingo and Fallon, and they're just great couples. Some of the best people I know.
Yeah.
And they go, they kind of look down and they go, saw your podcast on sex. I cannot listen.
They're one of the 6,000.
Yeah.
Hey, when
They
you
said,
get
no,
in,
they couldn't watch. They said, no, we're not listening.
just wait. That's one of the things I tell people. When you get in your 50s, you lose your filter. You don't care. And you know what? You're like, I earned the right to be able to be a straight shooter.
Babe, you don't have a filter. Let's just be. You have a minor. You got a very thin filter.
Yeah, but it's been fun. So the podcast was a joy for us, and of course it's a commitment too. But we've had probably the broadest reach we've ever had of influence, which has been a gift because we enjoy doing it so much.
Yeah. And then I mentioned earlier we've got the virtual Bible study coming. It'll be a weeknight, probably, hopefully a Wednesday. We'll see. But that'll be coming up soon. We'll let you know more about that. And then Breathe, the book is getting done. We're in the final edit, and
lots to talk about with that coming up.
So there's a lot going on. And if you would like to help and support Hope Rescue, you can go to hoperescuepodcast.org or hoperescue.org, either one of those. And you'll find us there, and you can see it'll show what we do, and you'll be able to give if you'd like to give. We are a nonprofit and tax deductible, and we do a lot of great things, and we just love to have you partner with us. And those of you who do, thank you so much for doing that. And we're going to run for this week, but next week we want you to come back and bring some friends. We're going to talk about relationships. We're going to talk about marriage. It's going to relate to dating and every kind of relationship, friendships as well. So join us next week. It's such a joy that you join with us on Hope Rescue. We'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.